Hi everyone, and welcome to this video, which is a part of Sage One's Knowledge Series initiative. So earlier, a few of my research colleagues have written very insightful notes on diverse topics such as traits of a quality promoter, capital efficiency, hydrogen as an alternate energy source, etc. Our latest installment in this series, and also a topic for discussion today, is platform companies, as you all can see on the screen. So, firstly, let's start by asking what are platform companies exactly? So, platform companies use technology to allow multiple consumers and producers to interact simultaneously for various resources in the most efficient manner possible. They're helping us solve day-to-day problems. They're making our lives much more efficient. And honestly, we cannot imagine living without them. So just to cite a few examples, some of the most popular platforms all around the world, Facebook, Google, YouTube, Amazon, Airbnb, Uber, all these are ones that, we can't live without. And not to be left behind, there are a lot of platforms that are coming up in India too. So, you have Zomato and Nykaa, Swiggy, then you have Paytm, Policy Bazaar, Dream11, Naukri.com. So these multiple platforms are present across different domains. So it can be food tech, it could be e-commerce, be gaming, health tech, fintech, etc. So given the rise of all these platforms, we thought that there is a need to kind of discuss this topic in detail. And also we've seen that a lot of these companies have got listed recently. So Zomato, Nykaa, Cartrade, Paytm, Policy Bazaar, all these have gotten listed over the last 3 months or so. And over the next 2 or 3 years, also we believe that there are going to be many such listings that are going to happen in this space. And that's the reason for actually choosing this topic. And we just thought that as an investor, we need to understand what these companies are, and why are they different. And most of them even come at very high valuation, so it's important to understand why they are valued like this, what is the risk involved when you invest in them, etc. Also, another key important thing to understand in these kind of companies is that they are very differentiated business model. So your traditional companies basically have a business model where there is a linear supply chain, wherein raw material is created, and then that gets processed in a factory, and then it's a finished good, and then the distribution happens through a wholesale or a retail network, etc. And to continuously grow, the platform needs to, I mean, the company needs to keep reinvesting into assets or humans to increase their growth going forward. But for a platform company which is just connecting various users and consumers, there is no such need. There is no actual supply chain required, and there is even no need for incremental investment once the platform is up and ready, and working well and satisfying all the consumer needs. So given that these business models are different, and given that they are coming at a high valuation, then there is a risk involved. But it's also equally important to understand them, as we believe that there could be many of these businesses that come over the next a few years or so. So with that, we'll dive straight in. And this is just a summary of what our note basically enlists. So we'll be talking about each of these points in brief today. And anybody wants to read up further, then the note has gone into more detail on each of these points. So first question to ask is, why did platforms emerge? So various business models today, they are inefficient in the way they work. And also there are high transaction costs, or the convenience is not there, or the markets has high fragmentation. There are many buyers and sellers that are spread out all across the country or the world, and they cannot interact with each other and cannot sell or buy exactly what they want in real time. So to solve this problem of inefficiency, of high transaction costs, to improve the customer experience, to make everything much more quicker, give more accessibility, and also make things more personalized according to what each producer of a good or a consumer good wants. These platforms have emerged as of now. So why didn't these platforms emerge earlier? So that's a very key question to ask, because these problems that existed on why platforms emerged were even there earlier. But why didn't the concept of platforms come up earlier? So as I said, platform needs technology to function, and there are various facilitators of this technology. So they could range from a smartphone is one of them, which is evolving constantly. There are so many apps that have come on. Data has gotten faster and cheaper as time has gone on. you need cloud for storage of so much data. Data analytical tools have been improving, and more importantly, there is now something called a plug and play API, which is a application programming interface. So wherein you can outsource some part of your platform to other companies. So how this works is, to just give an example, as it sounds a little complicated. Is basically somebody like a Swiggy today. So when you go to make a payment, when you order for some food, it directs you to a payment gateway page. Now that payment gateway page is where it asks you for your net banking details or your credit card details. It's not created by Swiggy, and that is not managed by Swiggy. It's generally managed by Razorpay or some other platform which is good at making payment gateways. So somebody like a Swiggy can outsource certain facets of their platform. Like probably for maps, they can use Google Maps to show where the driver is located. For payment gateways, Razorpay. So this makes the whole process easier of creating a platform wherein you can use and plug and play all these different basically sources that you need to run an entire platform. And this also makes you nimble, because in a traditional business model, to turn around the model or to change it overnight becomes very difficult. But here, because all these things are just attached, you can always change them around, you can always redesign them. It becomes a lot more easier. And what is happening is that faster data and faster phones and data storage, analytics, this whole outsourcing thing, these all are coming together today and actually compounding each other's growth, and therefore they're actually turbocharging the platforms into making them so efficient today. So we come to the next point, and which is probably one of the most important points, and we'll spend a little more time on this because it's a little lengthy. So what is the life cycle of a successful platform, and what are the key addressable points at each stage? So we've divided this thing into three stages. Basically, the first is the early days. So at this stage, basically, you're just trying to test the idea, make sure it's viable, make sure you're hiring the right employees, the management is taking the right decisions. Also, asking a very fundamental question, that is this having any substantial impact in the day-to-day lives of a lot of people? So if it is, then it's something that gives viability to the idea. And it's also important to establish the unit economics at this stage. So what is the pricing, and whom can you subsidize, etc. So how it works is that if suppose Swiggy is there and they have many restaurants that have signed up, but there are very few users that are ordering food as of today. They will try and subsidize these users by giving them discounts, like we keep getting, and this makes more users join the platform. So you need to balance both the sides. You need to know who can you subsidize by giving discounts to, who can you charge full price. And once you balance all these things, and then the most important thing is that can you be a good matchmaker, that can the right producer meet the right user, and can both their needs get fulfilled, and can it happen in the best and fastest way possible or no? So this is the initial testing phase, the early days, to say so. Then coming up next is the scale up stage. So once the viability of the idea has been established, and it has been accepted by most customers, and it's a niche idea, and you've kind of gotten ahead of the competition, the next stage is that you need to start investing into heavily creating network effects. So this is the most important point, I think, and one needs to understand what network effects are. So network effects basically means that if you get more buyers onto the platform, then automatically more sellers will come, because there are so many buyers. And if more sellers keep joining and they are selling more things, then even more buyers will join in, and this creates a circular loop, and the number of users just keeps growing in a geometrical progression way. So if we take suppose Uber, so Uber, if suppose they reduce, they've got a lot of drivers on board already, and if suppose they reduce the fare that they charge, and the time taken for you to get to point A to point B is also reduced. If you order a cab and it comes immediately, more and more users are going to sign up if these drivers are there. But as even more users sign up, they will need even more drivers. And if more drivers come in, they can again go and reduce the prices, or again it shortens the time at which you can hail a cab. So this entire process just keeps getting better and better, and it's helping all the participants involved. So this creates the network effects wherein people keep joining this platform, and this is the actual defensibility of the platform. So a software is something that anybody can create, but it is the quality of these users that come onto the platform which is most important. So the platform should make it basically like a pull platform, wherein discounting is not the only way to get these customers, and they should be high value customers basically. And data is the key out here. So you have to use this data to customize, based on whatever real time you receive, and you can also cross sell multiple products then. So how Uber has created, Uber Pool, Uber Eats, you can, launch multiple new avenues to earn extra income as a platform. And again, this helps both the producer and the user. When there are so many people joining into the platform, of course, I think risk management for the platform becomes important. So they need to set certain strict rules and a rating system, etc. Authentication for social media platforms to ensure that there is, nothing wrong that's happening, or nobody, there are no fraudulent sellers that are there on a particular e-commerce site, etc. So creating these set of rules and implementing them, it becomes key at this stage when you're having an absolute explosion of so many users joining in because you're investing so heavily to grow. And once you've achieved that kind of a scale, then you are almost at monopolistic status, and that's where you come to stage number three, where the company is per se like a modern monopoly. So at this stage, now they're likely to dominate for a lot of years to go ahead, and they need very good algorithms because there are so many users. So matching the right person to the right person is like finding a needle in a haystack. So it becomes very difficult. And also basically, you need to have good capital allocation, because now the platform has gone through the investment phase and now it started generating a lot of cash flows. So you need to know that where do you invest these cash flows for your next leg of growth, and what are the other opportunities that you can basically tap into. And because now the platform has become big, it improves the efficiency. You can dictate the pricing as a platform, and also you can use this to pass on the benefits to the consumers to make even more platforms join, and ultimately keep continuing your journey of being a monopoly. So there are many successful platforms today in the world, and that is the next point, that these all have a long lasting impact on the economy. So just to name the top 6 out of 10 companies in the world by market cap are all platforms. So Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Facebook, Tencent. And barring Tencent, the other five, we know that how much of a difference it makes to our day-to-day lives, and how they've actually helped use technology in a way in which things have become much more efficient and helped a lot of economies and businesses grow. And over the last 5 years, these five US based companies, except Tencent, have also almost delivered 3x to 6x returns, which is phenomenal given their size. And this market price performance is not only just based on a valuation re-rating, it's based on core earnings growth. So if you take somebody like an Amazon, they've delivered a 30% CAGR revenue growth over the last 15 years, and that too on such a large base. So I think that's quite a phenomenal achievement, and that is how these platforms keep going into different areas, and have the ability to keep scaling up as time goes on. Coming towards the last few points now. So what are the advantages of successful platforms over traditional linear businesses? So as I said, a traditional linear business basically has a defined supply chain, and they cannot change things around much. But a platform has data which is real time market research, and they use algorithms to do decision making. So if you take a linear company which has grown big already, due to bureaucracy or due to so many layers and in the company, so many rules, decision making becomes very difficult. But in a platform, it's an open free platform wherein there is nobody who makes decisions, the algorithms who decides. So seeing all that, it just it's much more easier. There's no diseconomies of scale that a platform has, which a traditional business can have. And also with scale, the platform actually passes on the benefits to their users, which is not the case with a linear company. Also, historically, linear companies, which are monopolies, were quite despised. But a platform is very different because the users only control the market. It is voluntary to join the platform. It's free market participation, and most of these platforms have actually landed up growing the entire pie of a particular industry rather than actually taking one piece of the pie. So if you take suppose Airbnb also, it has given you a totally different way in which you can travel and stay, but they've not eaten per se a lot into the hotel businesses, which continue to do well today. And one of the biggest advantages of platform companies is that they can grow exponentially without any investment. So the only key investment, as I said, is into creating the platform and then maybe doing heavy marketing to kind of ramp it up. But once that marketing phase is over, then there's not much investments that are required. and then they can dominate for a lot of years, to go on. Also, they generally, because they are backed by strong PE investors and founded by young bright entrepreneurs, they have good managements in place, and due to low investments, low working capital requirements, their PAT to free cash flow conversion is also high. So these are a few of the important advantages that a successful platform has over traditional leaner businesses. But of course, with every advantage, there are certain key risks that also come in. So, the key risk for a platform, first risk is definitely survival. Can they crack the viability? Can they crack the business unit economics? And, can they keep reinventing themselves to ensure that, they survive for a lot of years? So that will go down depending on the management and, how they set their rules, etc., to ensure that there are no counterfeit goods or fraudulent sellers or, fake profiles on social media platforms, etc. So if they set the rules where there is a trust involved, we are making some sort of a difference in our lives, then it's fine. But otherwise, if any of these things, go for a toss, we don't know if that platform may survive for a long period of time or no. Also, data privacy is a big issue which there is no conclusion on. And all these legal risks are also there that something may go wrong and somebody may come and file a case on that. So, but survival remains to be the most critical risk to determine, that whether a platform will survive or no. And so when we are discussing the last point, which is how do we decide on whether to invest into a platform or no, this becomes a most key question to ask. That can you actually predict the cash flow, say 10 years out, and believe that this platform will survive after 10 years? So most of the cash flows in a platform are back ended, because as I said, in the ramp up stage they need to invest really heavily into getting both these producers and users on board. So when they're investing for say 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, you basically the cash flows tend to come in after that period of time. And typically a platform will always be investing through their profit and loss account statement. So that will be done in the form of marketing expenses or through subsidies. As I said, how Swiggy gives discounts, etc. So nothing is on the balance sheet for you to have any hard asset to go back on. So you are basing yourself that based on the quality of the customers that this platform has created, they will basically survive for a long period of time, and the cash flows will come after a few years. So it becomes very critical to be to whether to know that can you predict these cash flows and whether they will come or no. So that is key, I think, and that is a first question you need to answer. Otherwise, the rest of it is a good management is required, and of course you will value it similarly to other companies like the present value of future cash flows. But as I said, the cash flows are a little back ended, so that's what you need to keep in mind. And one more important thing, and probably the most important, is that if you get your business model right and you know which platform will survive and which management is good, I think valuations is the one key challenge that everybody faces today. And one needs to understand that these businesses generate very high ROCs and they have a very high long growth runway, because they don't need much investments to come through. And once they've already reached the domination phase, it's very difficult for somebody to come and break that. So given that high growth, high ROC plus domination, very difficult to value them and say to with as compared to a traditional business. So we expect that these companies will always trade at a higher multiple. So that is something also that investors need to keep in mind. So I hope that this short video just gives you a glimpse of basically what this note covers, and it helps you kind of analyze all these companies. So we at Sajan will keep evaluating these companies as they come and try to see that which are the good investments and which aren't. But we at least hope that this video also helps you in kind of you know helping you to analyze how these companies should be evaluated, etc. So we'll be looking forward to your feedback, on the note. And thank you so much for your time today.